With me is Israel's new ambassador to India, Ambassador Reuven. So welcome to WION. It's great to have conversation with you. My first question to you is an obvious one as to how do you see India-Israel relationship, and as the new ambassador of Israel to India, what will be your key priorities?
Well, Sidhant, thank you very much for this interview. The relationship between India and Israel is an amazing relationship. We have a lot of things in common. We are two ancient peoples having young countries, and we are building our economies, building our infrastructure. We both have serious security threats and defense challenges, and we live in a problematic environment. And we have linked ourselves together for quite some decades now, since we started our cooperation in the defense sector. And today, beyond that sector, we have a great partnership in food security, agriculture, water. Israel has about 32 centers of excellence in agriculture, in which we are partnering with the Indian government to introduce technologies. Our companies, big irrigation companies, are here. The third pillar is innovation. We have a lot of Israeli startups and technology companies working with the technology hubs here in India, in Bangalore, Mumbai, in Delhi, and other places. The fourth pillar that we are starting to build now is in the infrastructure sector. Israel is also building its own infrastructure. Now we are going to invest $35 billion in the next 5 years, and we want to invite Indian companies to participate in international tenders in Israel because we lack the capabilities that India has when it comes to building infrastructure. India has built already 1,000 kilometers of metro, for example. We don't have any metro. We are building it now. So we would like to have Indian companies coming. And what really is the common denominator on all these four pillars I talked about is supply chains and sourcing. India is becoming a manufacturing hub in the world, and many companies in Israel have started or want to start operations in India in commercialization of technology and of startups and in production. So we are seeing these companies coming to India all the time. I had in the first weeks of my tenure here already meetings with such companies, and of course with Indian players that want to have a part in that process.
So several areas and domains of cooperation, but few things stand out. One is agriculture. I believe Israel embassy is the only embassy in Delhi which has a diplomat dedicated to water cooperation, startups, semiconductors, and artificial intelligence. If you can perhaps give more details as to where are you looking at the cooperation going forward?
Well, first of all, we have to make sure that the centers of excellence are working and actually are introducing the right technologies. So we have experts that are going from one center to another in order to verify that. Then we have cooperation with our private sector companies in order to make sure that they have access and they engage with the Indian partners. In addition to that, as a result of the agreement between Prime Minister Modi and Prime Minister Netanyahu back in 2018, we have a special water envoy, because water is becoming the main challenge for the future. As a result of this climate challenge situations that we have. So we have two issues. One is the lack of water, and the second is what to do with the sewage water, because this, the urbanization, the massive urbanization, is creating a lot of water issues. As people increase their level of life, they use more water, and then there is a danger that these waters will contaminate the rivers, will deplete nature. So Israel is introducing successfully technologies to purify the water, to recycle it, and to use it for agriculture again. So we in Israel grow 70% of our crops with recycled water, and we recycle 95% of our sewage. So these are things that are already proven, and now we are working with governments, with states, with cities, with water companies in order to prevent leakage, to put sensors to control, to know what's happening with the water. There are different solutions that might fit different places. Not necessarily our solutions are fit for every place, but since we have this cooperation, we have an amazing upgrade in the water cooperation that is going to help us also with climate change challenges. On innovation, we have different people in our embassy, but also in our consulates in Mumbai and Bangalore that are, first of all, encouraging Israelis to participate in events in India, but also are doing matchmaking between technological companies in India and Israel, both for the benefit of joint research through a mutual research fund that we have established of $4 million per year on each side, whether it be on commercialization of startups, because many startups in Israel, they want to grow to be big companies, but it's not worth it to manufacture in Israel. India has a relative advantage in that. It's not just the manufacturing, it's the commercialization of the product. So there are companies that are specializing in that. So we are working with the investment authority and with other players in order to make that happen. So at the end of the day, this takes a lot of our time, and we are sure that the impact of that is going to be huge.
Indian workers is something that we have seen conversation happening. In fact, practical developments have happened. The first lot of Indian workers have gone to Israel. So what numbers are you looking at when it comes to Indian workers traveling to Israel in coming few months? I believe a good amount has already left.
Well, the potential is huge. Where we are having currently about 9,000 to 10,000, but it's just the beginning. There are going to be three ways in which workers can come to Israel. Two were already established, either through a governmental agreement or through the private sector. But if Indian companies start to develop infrastructure projects in Israel, then they will be able to bring their own teams to work in Israel in order to implement these projects. So there is a challenge at the beginning because we have to make sure that the right kind of workers meet the needs of the right kind of employers. But at the end of the day, I think this will only grow, and we will perfect the system as we go.
We saw some stories as well in terms of the Indian workers facing problems and skill issues as well, skill mismatch. What do you have to say on that?
Well, it's basically the job of the private sector companies to test the workers before they arrive. So if they don't do the proper job and they don't do the testing before the workers come, then they get surprised when the people come and suddenly they find out that they are not skilled enough. So first of all, they have to improve their testing capabilities. Second, they can also train the workers when they came. So the government tried to help if we tackle the situation in which workers don't fit to a certain field, then they divert them to another field. But we prefer to be in a situation in which we have a meeting of expectations, in which the employers know exactly what they want and they need, and the workers also know, what's going to happen with them. So we manage to avoid any difficulties.
But on the safety issue, there have been conversation. Are Indian workers safe in Israel?
Of course, and we were very keen, following also the request of the Indian government to put a distance between workers and dangerous places as a result of the current conflict happening in Israel. So workers are working in places that are not in danger, and they just work in places where Israelis work as well. So I think in that regard we are pretty safe.
So now coming to India's stance on the ongoing conflict, how do you see India's stance? India was among the first countries to condemn the terror attack by Hamas, but since then India has also called for respecting the humanitarian law, the international law. What do you have to say on New Delhi's position?
Well, it's natural the countries will expect humanitarian law to be respected. We are a democracy and we respect international humanitarian law. I think that the challenge has been for all democracies when terrorists abuse the norms that we have and take advantage of it in order to try to create immunity for their operatives. And we, unfortunately, are seeing it very vastly used in the Gaza Strip, but also in Lebanon now. You probably saw how Hamas use human shields, how they fire rockets, or at least they used to fire rockets when they had rockets, to fire rockets from within civilian population against, in an indiscriminate way, against civilian population, or how they used ambulances to transport terrorists, or how they took advantage of hospitals and actually had terrorists working from within hospitals or from schools. So they have been actually, working against any rule in the book in order to try to create a situation in which people think that Israel is working against international humanitarian law. What they are forgetting is that, according to international humanitarian law, if you use a humanitarian facility or a facility that is protected under international law, you abuse it and you use it to operate from there and to attack from there, then that place loses its immunity. So that's why it has become controversial. It's because they're abusing our respect for international humanitarian law. And this is exactly what is happening in Lebanon now as well. The entire south of Lebanon is full of missiles that are embedded into civilians' homes. And that's why the IDF has been calling in the last few days the civilians that live in villages in the south of Lebanon to evacuate, to distance themselves from these houses in which they live that have a room with missiles, because it's very dangerous for them. At the end of the day, Israel will have to defend itself and hit those missiles. So we don't want civilians to be in harm's way. We're calling them to evacuate and to get away of harm's way.
But how do you see India's role in perhaps resolving the ongoing situation when it comes to Israel and, of course, the Gaza situation? Because India has good relationship with the Israeli leadership, that is well known, but India also has good relationship with the Palestinian leadership. In fact, earlier today, the Indian Prime Minister met the Palestinian leadership in New York on the sidelines of the UNGA. So how do you see India's role?
Well, do you think India wants to play a role?
My question is, do you see India's role? Would you be keen to see India's role in playing in terms of reaching out to the Palestinian and the Israeli side? India, of course, has in the past said that it would not mediate unless it's invited. Yeah. Would you be keen that India be invited and have conversation, send out a message to the other side?
Well, sending messages is always a good thing, but it's up to India to decide whether it wants to be involved or not. I think that at the end of the day, we have to concentrate in reaching our goals and getting support from the parties that actually are interested in stability and prosperity. And I think that India is interested in stability and prosperity, and it has been very clear that it doesn't support indiscriminate terrorist attacks against Israel or any other party. So in order to stabilize the region, we have to defeat the terrorists, and we have to create a situation in which the people that actually are more moderate and pragmatic will have a chance to have a role. And as long as the terrorists have the stronger hand in the Palestinian society, the leadership that wants to or would like maybe to negotiate with Israel are intimidated. And they won't go forward and negotiate in good faith with the State of Israel. And that's why we have a responsibility here. All the countries in the world have a responsibility to defeat radicalism if we want really to see a good outcome.
There are reports, I'm saying reports because there is no confirmation regarding this, that Indian weapons are reaching to Israel and Israel is using Indian weapons in Gaza. Is it true?
Well, look, I cannot comment on shipments because I don't have information. Israel has its own defense industry, and it's cooperating in defense industry with many countries, including with India. So I don't know to what extent things are either coming or going, but at the end of the day, Israel buys mainly American systems, and it produces most of its systems itself.
So most likely Indian weapons aren't used or used? I mean, what's your sense like?
Well, as I said, I'm not aware of specific shipments of weapons that I can talk about them at this point.
Sir, India's position at the UN. We have seen India abstaining at many resolutions which are openly pro-Palestinian. How do you see that?
Well, I think that the international arena, and especially the UN system, is very problematic because it is rigged by a majority of countries that do not necessarily are interested in advancing goals that are important both for us and for India. Goals like democracy, respect of human rights, and instead of that, are using their majority power, especially Arab and Muslim countries that have overwhelming presence in the UN, to appoint people that are biased and write biased reports, or to initiate resolutions like the resolution that was approved in the UN General Assembly last week, that is calling to ban Israel, to do all kinds of things, to punish Israel, despite the fact that Israel is defending itself. So I think that we are all suffering from that, but I think Israel is suffering the most, because when you look at the UN system, you see that it is full of activity against Israel in a way that is completely distorted. So yes, we have a challenge, and we are happy that some of the countries are actually not lining up with these bad initiatives, and we are grateful that India didn't support the UNGA resolution that was approved last week.
Now I have two questions, first regarding Gaza and then of course Lebanon. Regarding Gaza, it is almost 1 year since the Hamas terror attack happened. October 7th, you will mark the first anniversary. It's an unfortunate anniversary. Where is the situation currently heading towards for Israel, and what does Israel plans to do?
Okay, so first of all, when you look at the status or the result of our operation, you can see that we have managed to bring back about 150 hostages. Out of the 250, we still have 100 hostages that we have to bring back. We're trying to make a deal to bring them back, or continue doing operations to bring them back. It's a combination of both. But above that, what we have done is that we have completely destroyed the military capability of Hamas in terms of their threats against Israel itself. So they no longer have thousands of weapons and missiles they had before the war. They cannot fire against Israel indiscriminately as they were doing before. We destroyed their capabilities, their stockpiles, their factories. We destroyed many of their command and control centers, including their intelligence. We have basically destroyed their capability to operate as an army. They used to have several regiments that we destroyed. So they can still do some terrorist attacks, some attacks against our forces, and they are unfortunately still controlling the humanitarian assistance. And Israel will have to decide in the coming weeks whether it's going to allow that to continue. Because at the end of the day, as long as the Palestinians in Gaza continue to fear Hamas and be terrorized by Hamas, it's going to be very difficult to bring any other alternative. So nobody in the world, neither from the Palestinian Authority or from the Arab world or international, they are not going to come to the Gaza Strip as long as Hamas is there. So we will have to continue our operation until Hamas is completely defeated militarily. And we can, together with our partners and friends, create a brighter future for Gaza that is free from Hamas terrorist threat.
But there is another situation that is escalating very fast. That's the Lebanon situation. Where do you see the situation going forward now?
Well, this situation has been dragging for some time because, as you remember, Hezbollah unprovokedly attacked Israel on the 8th of October. Okay, so this unprovoked attack was met with Israeli retaliation. However, we waited with the retaliation because we were concentrated in Gaza Strip. The Israeli defense forces weren't big enough in order to deal with both threats simultaneously, and for different reasons. the government and the IDF decided to have a gradual approach. So now we are seeing the focus shifting towards Lebanon because we want to bring our citizens back home. We have evacuated between 60 and 70,000 citizens from the immediate area of the border because they were being attacked directly with anti-tank missiles and other rockets by Hezbollah and especially the Radwan forces. So we want to change that. And our aim, our declared aim of the government of Israel is to implement UN Security Council Resolution 1701, which Hezbollah have been breaching and refused to implement. So what is expected is to all the Hezbollah forces to withdraw north of the Litani River, so we can have stability in the border. Hezbollah is refusing to do that. And Israel has declared that if Hezbollah is not willing to do that, we are going to increase our attacks. So you've seen some of these efforts by Israel, and this will incrementally grow as long as Hezbollah refuses to implement 1701. What we are seeing in the last 24 hours is that we are targeting Hezbollah capabilities inside villages, in all these places in which they illegally are embedding weapon systems in order to attack Israeli citizens. We have seen, unfortunately, many, so far since the 8th of October, we've seen more than 8,300 missiles, hundreds of drones, hundreds of anti-tank missiles being fired from Lebanon. We are not going to tolerate that. So what is expected to happen is that we are going to increase our attacks against Hezbollah incrementally.
And was Israel behind the pager attacks in Lebanon, as is being reported by various outlets?
Well, we've seen that this happened. We don't have anything to say about it. At the end of the day, when terrorists, operate, they are not immune. So whoever did that, I think, wanted to send a clear message to the terrorists. And actually, what is even more substantial is that last week, the end of last week, we have managed to hit the main commanders of the Radwan forces while they were planning to attack Israel, to invade Israel, actually. So if Hezbollah thinks that they will be able to continue attacking Israel and Israel will just stay put, they have to prepare for a different scenario. And the government has made it very clear that we have the right to defend ourselves and we will not continue sustaining such situations. We will have to solve it because we want to bring all our citizens back. They deserve to be back in their homes.
Now, so going to the wider region, the biggest worry for Israel has always been Iran. Now, do you fear an attack by Iran anytime soon? And also linking a short question with this is, how do you see India's role? Again, I know you've already answered when it comes to Gaza and Israel, but India is good friends with Israel and again with Iran. Do you see any messaging of sorts being sent through the India channel?
Well, first of all, we have to remember that Iran is the head of the octopus. Okay, all this instability that has been created in the last few years, especially since the Arab state system collapsed in the Arab Spring, this vacuum created a huge influx of weapons, training, money that is coming from Iran to all these proxies in Lebanon, in Syria, in Iraq, in Yemen, okay, in the Palestinian territories. And they are doing that because they want to expand the Iranian Islamic Revolution. They have an agenda of becoming hegemonic in the region. They want to defeat Sunni Islam, okay? And Israel is just another obstacle in the way. They are against the United States, they are against democracy and Western values. So Iran is a very dangerous entity right now. And we wish for a day in which Iran will be free, in which the people of Iran that are being also oppressed by this terrible radical regime, that they will also be free. We've seen, how they are hanging opponents of the regime, how they are, harassing women. It's terrible. And, many countries have told us in the past that, it's important to have this dialogue with Iran, because if you have a dialogue with Iran, you'll be able maybe to influence them. Many European countries were telling us this for decades. It didn't change anything. At the end of the day, the only thing that is going to change Iran behavior, and we've seen that in the past, is that if pressure is being put on Iran, if countries stop cooperating with Iran, if countries stop being friendly to Iran, because if they do that, Iran will continue working against them, will continue to proliferate their weapons, not just in the area of the Mashreq, of West, the western part of Asia, but also they will start, exporting these technologies to other rogue elements. Look at what's happening in Europe now, in which you see Iranian attack drones and missiles being fired and landing in Ukraine. So this is very dangerous. At the end of the day, these people are going to proliferate these technologies also to other places, and you might find it also near theaters that are closer to your home. So our experience tells us that just smiling to Iran doesn't make any difference.
So moving on to the connectivity initiatives and conversations on ITU2. Where is ITU2 heading? We saw it being announced in a big bang way, but not much has happened since then. And also on the India, Middle East, Europe corridor, do you think that this corridor will take time because of the ongoing situation in West Asia?
Well, we have to remember that at the end of the day, when you want to create economic stability, it has to lean on pillars of security stability and political stability. Okay? And then you can create economic stability and economic prosperity. When you have a region that is being attacked by aggressors that want to destroy it, it's going to be very difficult to build such capability. But we have proven in the past, and we will prove it in the future again, that when we defeat the radicals, we can create this corridor of stability in the region because we have partners that are interested in that. We have Israel, Egypt, Jordan, Saudi Arabia, UAE, Bahrain, and other countries that want to be part of this corridor of prosperity. And you have Europe and India and other countries in Asia that are also interested in that. And the proof that we are having even during this war is that we have united under the American umbrella to defend the skies of the Middle East against these atrocious attacks that are coming from Iran. So you saw it on the 13th of April, when Iran launched the most massive attack of drones and missiles in history against another country, that we managed to foil it because we have already cooperation in the Middle East, military cooperation between countries in the region. So I am sure that once we defeat Hamas and Hezbollah and we restore stability in our region, we will be able to have also the economic part built on the security and the political part. We will be able to expand the Abraham Accords, and the interest of the countries in the region as a result of this war only increased, not decreased. But we have one duty. We have, first of all, to defeat those who want to harm stability and prosperity, because these are the enemies of peace, and these are also the enemies of Israel and India and many other countries in the world.
How do you see Al Jazeera's role in terms of this ongoing conflict? Now, Al Jazeera says that their offices has been raided by the Israeli forces.
Well, if you make a quick check, you will see that many countries in the region have banned Al Jazeera. And you know why? Can you imagine why they are doing that? Because Al Jazeera is a promoter of a radical Muslim Brotherhood agenda in the Middle East. Because Al Jazeera is against the values that we want to promote, of democracy, of human rights. They just pretend that they are defending human rights. But what they are really doing is promoting radicalism, promoting rejectionism. They are promoting blood libels against Israel. They are a very dangerous entity. And unfortunately, they are being supported by the Qatari government that is playing a double game. Okay? On the one hand, it enjoys the protection of the West. But on the other hand, they are promoting this radical agenda in order to defend themselves from the radicals. And this game must stop. So many countries have already reached that conclusion. Israel, it took us too long because, again, people are using and abusing our norms. We support freedom of speech. But freedom of speech has the limit when somebody promotes violence and terrorism. And this is exactly what Al Jazeera is doing. And therefore, they have ceased to be a legitimate player, and they have to be banned. Not only from many Arab countries, that they already banned them, but also from Israel.
So my last question to you is, last year, the Greek Prime Minister suggested inclusion of India in a trilateral, which includes Israel, Cyprus and Greece. I know situation since then has gone really bad, but any plans? What is Israel's view on inclusion of India in this trilateral, where India has good relationship with all the three countries?
Look, at the end of the day, political frameworks are very important. The question is what kind of content you put inside that framework. Okay, so we have in this trilateral framework we had with Greece and Cyprus, we were doing a lot of meetings for a long time, but it became strategic only when we managed to put content into it. So today we are connecting with Cyprus and Greece with an electrical cable. We are having, cooperation in flights, in transportation. In defense industry, Israel is building the military aviation school of Greece. We have bonds that are worth billions of dollars in trade, in tourism, everything. This is what we are doing with India as well. There might be a situation in the future in which, because of the fact that India has commercial and strategic interest in the Eastern Mediterranean, we will find the ways of creating joint projects between the four of us. It can be in communication cables, it can be in logistics, it can be in energy corridors, many things. So it's up to the governments to prioritize, and it's up to the private sector to implement, and we are going to be more than happy to do that together.
Well, on that note, thank you so much, sir, for speaking to WION on
Thank you.
almost all subjects. And this is your first TV interview, essentially, so it's good to have this conversation with you. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you, Sidhant.